and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name is Scott Daly, co-founder and creator of The Doof Media, and this is my co-host and co-co-founder, the Matt Freeman. Matt, you own roughly 49.9% of this company.
Awesome. These are the good shares, right?
I'll have our lawyers get back to you on that. Just sign here.
Awesome.
This week on the show, it is another one of our monthly Deconstructing Director series. We're diving deep into the films of David Fincher. And this week, it's the 8th film in the series, 2010's The Social Network, the story of Mark Zuckerberg. Or, well, the story of Mark Zuckerberg as it existed in 2010.
Yes, and as told by a really talented screenwriter who took some liberties.
But many liberties. But so we're going to be talking all about The Social Network. It will be a full spoilers discussion as we dive into that to try to, get some understanding around David Fincher and the movies he makes and see if we can tie this movie into the rest of his filmography. So it's going to be a really good conversation. I can't wait to talk about that. And then I am going to kind of stand on my soapbox and beg everyone to go watch a movie. That's what I'm going to do, because as you're listening to this, there's a new movie out called The Vast of Night. It hits Amazon on Friday, the 29th of May. So if you're listening to this, that's right now. And I think it's a really great movie that everyone should watch. So I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to give like a brief, no spoiler summary of that. And then we'll wrap up the show for the week. How's that sound?
Sounds good to me.
All right, let's go ahead and do it then. Let's talk about David Fincher's The Social Network.
I need to do something substantial in order to get the attention of the clubs.
Why?
Because they're exclusive and fun, and they lead to a better life. People want to go on the internet and check out their friends, so why not build a website that offers that friends, pictures, profiles? I'm talking about taking the entire social experience of college and putting it online.
The site got 2,200 hits within 2 hours.
22,000.
This idea is potentially worth millions of dollars.
Millions?
You stole our website.
They're saying we stole the Facebook.
I know what it says.
So did we?
$1 million isn't cool. You know what's cool? $1 billion.
You're going to get left behind. It's moving faster than any of us ever imagined.
Matt, what is The Social Network about?
Well, as Harvard student Mark Zuckerberg creates the social networking site that would become known as Facebook, he is sued by the twins who claimed he stole their idea and by the co-founder who was later squeezed out of the business.
God, isn't it crazy how IMDb can just distill this stuff down to make it seem so ordinary?
So boring.
Yeah. I mean, that is technically what the movie is about, but it's so much more than that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about the relationships between the characters, right?
Yeah. And as you said, this was written by Aaron Sorkin and directed by our buddy David Fincher. This is the 8th film directed by Fincher, and the first time he works with Aaron Sorkin, who is a prolific screenwriter who is responsible for some of my favorite movies and television shows of all time. I love Aaron Sorkin, Matt. I think I just want to say that going into this thing, that Aaron Sorkin's style of writing is like crack to me. I just I love the way he writes dialogue. I love the kind of the musicality of his dialogue, and I really do think that the Fincher Sorkin marriage was like a match made in heaven, and I adored this movie. What did you think about it?
Yeah, I love this movie. I mean, I've always liked this movie, but I haven't seen it in a number of years until this rewatch, and I had actually forgotten how good it is. I would put this toward the top of his films, honestly. I almost would put it at the top, but then I start hemming and hawing about Seven or Zodiac.
Yeah.
But really though, like you said, when you put together Sorkin and Fincher, and you sort of have I don't even know who's complimenting who. Is Fincher complimenting Sorkin's style of dialogue by accentuating it with his directing, or is it just that Sorkin is sort of elevating the story via his dialogue? It's very, and of course there's I think one of the most interesting things about the movie is like the constant cross-cutting through time.
Sure.
Where that relies, I mean, it definitely relies on the screenplay because you need to understand the story well enough, but it also very much relies on the directing because you need to, it'll cut between different scenes of Mark Zuckerberg sitting in depositions or whatever the word is for those rooms full of lawyers.
Yeah.
And it's like the joke is that he's like losing track of what deposition he's supposed to be in and what case he's supposed to be talking about. And it's always flawless, right? You're never like confused about the plot of the movie, even though it's actually fairly complicated.
Yeah, and even though Mark Zuckerberg dresses the same in every single one of these fucking things, he's wearing a hoodie and he's sandals. Like I think in some of the actual lawyerly depositions, he might have a tie, like a shoddy looking tie underneath it, but he's basically wearing the same stuff. I think that it's kind of a feedback loop here where Fincher is elevating Sorkin and Sorkin is elevating Fincher. I really do think that. And I think that's why this movie becomes amazing. I mean, we've been talking since the beginning of this project about David Fincher's dialogue scenes and the ways in which he takes a scene where two people are sitting at a table and talking to each other, and the way he uses the camera and he uses the editing and shot selection to elevate that scene beyond what it should normally be, which is just two people casually talking to each other. And you take that concept, that Fincher concept, and then you put Aaron Sorkin's dialogue in it, which is already electric, which is already, as I said, musical. It has a rhythm to it. It flows beautifully. And then you combine these two things and you get things like the opening scene of the movie, which is, I think, I hadn't seen this movie in a long time either, but the bar scene, the opening scene of the movie, is one that I have watched over and over and over again, similar to the interrogation scene in Zodiac, because I think it's just a masterclass in writing and directing to make a scene which is basically two people talking to each other and talking past each other, but it defines what the entire movie is going to be. That's the thing I love about the scene. And I think maybe this is a great place to kind of start our discussion, is this particular scene, this scene between Mark Zuckerberg and I think Erica was her name, played by Rooney Mara. And this is setting up everything that's going to happen in this movie. It is these two people talking. I mean, we have the establishment of his obsession with final clubs. Sorry, not finals clubs. So, I'm sorry, Mark. I'm sorry. And we have the way he treats people, the way he is kind of isolated constantly. Like, that's one thing I love about this movie when you really pay attention to it, just how much Fincher isolates Zuckerberg in the frame. Even when he's surrounded by people, he's so alone. And I mean, that's I think one of the greatest things this movie does is show how the person who created the most popular social networking site in the world is alone, has nobody.
Yeah. Right. I one of my favorite shots is when Facebook is really taking off and everyone's having a party in the house, like popping champagne, and he's standing outside looking in through the glass. Yeah. So many little moments like this.
Yeah. But I mean, that even goes here to this opening scene, which I was about to chase that idea down, and I said, no, we have to talk about this scene first.
Sure.
Because this, like a standard Fincher shot, and I'm going to repeat myself a little bit here, Matt, but this is 5 shots, right? There is a wide establishing where they are. There are 2 over the shoulders, and then there are 2 close-ups. That's it. That's all this entire conversation is. And they only cut to the wide at the beginning. It's an establishing shot. And then, so because it's so simplistic, it allows you to really dive in and analyze the shot selection, which is like this kind of very frantic cutting back and forth between the over the shoulders, almost every other sentence, because they're talking so fast to each other, and it's short, terse sentences, normally not even responding to the thing the other person was talking about, right? It's like one character is constantly like one topic behind the other, to kind of represent how Zuckerberg is not listening to her at all, actually. But the really interesting thing here is when it cuts to close-ups, because when it cuts away from the over the shoulder and just goes close-ups, as in to me, kind of symbolizing the one moment in the story where they've kind of started actually, or Zuckerberg at least has kind of actually started listening to Rooney Mara, is when she says the thing, what is the easiest one to get into? As soon as she says that is shot in close-up. And then everything for the next couple minutes of the scene, as he's kind of reeling through that thing, is in close-up because he's got her attention, or she's got his attention, rather, because she said this thing that he took as a very serious slight.
Yes, revealing the chip on his shoulder, which is the defining characteristic of this character.
Exactly, yeah. And it's so funny because I'm this is a Fincher show, so I'm not going to talk too much about how amazing Aaron Sorkin's dialogue is here. But I love the idea that's like, you said, which is the easiest. You asked that because you think I could only get in. You think that I should go for the one that's easiest to get into, or that would be the one that's easiest for me to get into. And her response is, the easiest one to get into is the one that's the easiest for everybody to get into.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And so this brings up something that I also wanted to talk about. I mean, we can definitely keep dwelling on the scene if you want to, but just I think maybe my favorite thing about the movie in general is like how there is basically no scene where Mark like breaks from the like completely emotionally constipated frame and says like, this is how I really feel about this. I really care about Eduardo. I'm really still pining for Erica. I really want to be like Justin Timberlake. Like you never actually see him say or really overtly reveal the way he feels or thinks about anything. It's all these little awesome acting choices and you know, almost microscopic acting choices in some cases, where you're just seeing how he reacts to something, which is usually kind of underscored by the classic Fincher, you know, close up, like you said.
Yeah.
I think a great moment is how she, you know, in the beginning of the movie, she sarcastically says, "Wow, you would do that for me," and then later when they say they're going to rehabilitate his reputation, he says, you know, very, very subtle, but like, "Wow, you would do that for me,"
Right.
and it's like, oh, he hates them now.
Yeah,
you know, like,
yeah.
and that's the thing is like, it's not overt, it's there, but it's definitely there, and there's so many things like this. Like this is the movie that makes you realize Jesse Eisenberg actually has quite a range,
right?
know?
And I think Jesse Eisenberg gets a raw deal because I think he has such a distinct I don't even know what to describe it as, like persona and tone, and like everything about him is very distinct, right? There's nobody quite like Jesse Eisenberg. And I think because of that, he gets kind of just written off as a person who is playing the same character in every movie. Because he just has this very distinct voice, this very distinct way of holding himself and way of performing, that he gets written off. But I agree with you. I mean, this is a tour de force performance, like, and it's one of those that does not call attention to itself. It's one of those that the performance is in between the words, not the words themselves. Everything he says here has something else behind it, every single thing. And I think Fincher's direction and Eisenberg's performance do a very good job at kind of cracking that, at opening that up to the audience and allowing you to see those. But yeah, I mean, it is on the strength of both of those things that allows this movie to work. And I hate when I see people write off Jesse Eisenberg because he's so fucking good. He's so good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all the little moments that really make this character a great movie character. And those are things that are, you know, you never see this quality. It's great. I love it. I love this movie.
Yeah. All right. That's it. We're done. No, but one thing more I will say about that scene. It is fascinating to me the way in which Fincher decided that all the big important moments or the big important decisions of the history of Facebook occur in a social setting. You know, it's like almost this hilarious contradiction where like, anytime they're deciding something in the future of the company, it's at a bar or it's in some sort of traditional social gathering place, a bar, a restaurant. There's that one amazing scene where he's meeting with Sean Parker in the club, and Fincher has mixed the volume of the bass of the club to an absurd level. And the reason I know this, Matt, is because I was listening to this whole movie. I had it on the normal volume I have it on. Everything was fine. We got to the club scene and my subwoofer like went fucking nuts. Like my dogs shot up and ran across the room. And so that's a conscious filmmaking choice that like, it's almost difficult to hear these people. And like, it's so amazing to me that around Mark constantly is social situations happening constantly. He's surrounded by he's in college, right? He's in college. He's surrounded by this social networking happening, and he's always apart from it. One of the things I really love, I mean, it's at the very end of that bar scene after she gives that wonderful line that also is in close up. It'll be because you're an asshole, which is a beautiful line that I love. The movie takes pain to show him run from the bar all the way home to his dorm. And I asked myself this question because it does this a couple times. It does this here, and then there's the one time where he's sitting in the computer lab sleeping, and his friend comes in and gives him the idea to do the relationship status part. And then it also shows him kind of run down the stairs, run outside, run across the quad, run back into the house he's living in and up to his room. And I kind of started asking myself, why do I think Fincher took that time? Normally you would think, okay, you just, you show him running out of the building, you give 2 seconds of him running across the street, and then that establishes he's moving, and then you cut to the new location and he's running in the door, and that's all you need to do. Fincher doesn't do that. And I was like, why doesn't he do that? And I realized it was because we have Zuckerberg existing on a campus, but he's not talking to anyone. And there's these long shots of him walking or running across campus, and no one says hi to him. He doesn't say hi to anyone. All around him are people talking and socializing and having the college experience that he wants so bad. And he's just not participating in any of it. I love it. Yeah. I love it.
And he obviously desperately wants it because he wants to be in the final club.
Right.
It's like a pathological need for belonging, but it's almost that in the way where he can't accept anything less than his vision of what it should be.
Right.
Because he has a friend, right? He has a friend, and he goes to the Jewish fraternity party with Eduardo. But this is nothing to him, right?
It's beneath him.
It's beneath him, and he deserves, in his mind, he deserves to be in the final club, an important person, and this is his, this is the driving force of the Facebook idea for him, is he wants to be this person who is the center of everything, the pinnacle of the social network.
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of the beautiful irony of it is. He succeeds at that, essentially entirely, and yet it does nothing for him at all.
Yeah. The movie closes with him frantically refreshing his own website to see that the lawyer he just met has accepted his Facebook request. What a moment, right? What a moment. I can't imagine what that was like on the page, but Fincher brought it to life. And just he's kind of slouched over, just hitting refresh on his laptop alone in this room with this. I think Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross did the score to this movie, and it's incredible. The main kind of theme is this treatise of loneliness. It's just so sad. Just this plinking, drawn out loneliness. I don't know a lot about music, but I heard that and I was like, oh my God, this is a person so just by the music, this is a person so desperate for anyone, but only the approved anyones. Yeah.
Yeah. Right, because he throws his only friend under the bus. That's maybe the one time in the script where it's just totally explicit and doesn't leave you to figure anything out is Eduardo being like, I was your only friend, and you still screwed me over. And yeah, it's great. I agree on the soundtrack. It's not just the feeling. I mean, obviously the feeling is great, but also it's even the small moments of how things are accentuated. I think one thing I wanted to talk about, and this ties into the music actually,
sure,
is how he's sort of braiding together two different ideas or tones throughout the movies. So, and I think the one place where the braiding, to explain what I mean when I say braiding, the one place where it's most visible is where you're watching all of these college boys playing with the Face Mash app, and it's doing very excellently constructed sequence where you're cutting between different people that they're all sort of like, you know, smiling naughtily while, you know, while doing right, left, you know, and clicking and then like it cuts to like some women looking at the screen and the music like stops and they're just like disgusted and they go, this is pathetic.
Yeah.
And then it cuts back to some boys and the music just comes right back. And so like what I mean is the movie is doing this very interesting sort of juxtaposition that it maintains between like, oh man, remember what it was like to be in college and for like this to be so important and going to parties and being accepted was just so goddamn important that you would just kill for it. And then also at the same time the movie is reminding you, hey, this is actually like pathetic and childish.
Yeah.
Like these are children. These are college students. They like the things that they're grasping for so greedily are nothing.
Yeah, right.
And foolish and childish and like maybe I'm overstating that a bit, but like I think that's one thing that's become very evident to me as I've gotten older, because when this movie came out I was in graduate school, which you can just view as being a very old college student basically.
Sure.
So I noticed that more this time, and I thought that was like one of the more fun and interesting things the movie's doing.
No, I love that so much. I mean, the thing that stood out to me there, I definitely noticed this, the part you're talking about, but the choice that Fincher made to cut between him programming Face Smash and the Final Club experience, like it's so fascinating to me because basically we're cutting between Mark building this disgusting website, basically this ranking, this women ranking website by illegally obtaining their photos and then allowing people to rank them against each other. But we're cutting back and forth between a finals club party that has quite literally bussed women in, and then like they bust women in, and like the men there, like, you should feel honored to be here. You should feel honored to be in this group. And then by the end of that sequence, there's two of them like standing on a table, taking their shirts off. Like there's two women kissing, you know, like it's just like the most stereotypical, like wild frat party kind of experience. And it's cut with Mark building this thing. And I thought that was such a fascinating choice that like really made my brain turn. I was like, okay, why did Fincher do that? Like, why did he look at, okay, we're going to cut this between the typical college experience as people think of it as, or maybe specifically as Zuckerberg thinks of it as. We're seeing what Zuckerberg thinks college should be, and he's trying to recreate that via technology. And so we're cutting between the creation of a new version of that and the current version of that. And I just find that super fascinating.
I like that take. I like this idea that Zuckerberg is the only one who's actually like cynical enough to have actually kind of nailed the psychology of the college student, and is able to be like, yeah, these are the kind of people who will bus in girls to go to their party. You can't aim low enough, you know?
Yeah.
And of course, you know, he turns out to be right, and you know, repeatedly in the movie and in real life, apparently.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that's like, you know, this movie is very critical of Zuckerberg, but I do think it gives him the benefit, or at least I'm hesitating to say this because I don't want to apply too much of this movie to the real life person, because this is a fictional story. Like, this is fiction, right? This is taking some true events and adding a lot of fiction behind it. So I don't want to peg too much of this on Zuckerberg, but at least in the world of the movie, the reason why Facebook was so successful is because he did have a pulse on what college students wanted, right? Like I think that's fair to say, right? That like he understood why people would like this thing, like why people would look at this thing and say, yes, that's absolutely that's fun. This is what I want. I like the idea is like people didn't go to Face Smash because they wanted to see pictures of pretty girls. You could do that anywhere. They wanted to go because they wanted to see pictures of people they knew. They want, like, people wanted to spy on each other's life and interact with each other in different ways. Like, he was right. He was totally right. And he had an understanding that I don't think anyone else did. And I think one of the things the Winklevoss lawsuit portion of the film kind of states rather explicitly is that even if he did steal the idea from them, they did not understand their idea in the ways that Zuckerberg did.
Yeah, well, I think the part of the idea that he stole from them, according to this film, is okay. We use the Harvard.edu email address,
Right.
which makes it a closed system, which makes it appealing because people are jealous of status.
Sure.
But then the movie shows from there, like he's the one who thinks of, he's the one who does the really elegant design.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one who thinks of the relationship status icon, which, like, you have to admit, I don't know if Mark Zuckerberg in real life thought of that or not, but like that absolutely is one of the things that made Facebook like the place to go. Like you have to have a Facebook because you have to advertise that, and you have to go there to check if other people are in a relationship. It's
right.
super, super important.
And just like as a step in the courting ritual, changing your relationship status on Facebook became an essential part of that, right? Like the change to in a relationship became, like, in pop culture and in everyday human understanding, a central part of the dating experience in college for a while. I think it is much less so now. I also think the new Facebook design doesn't, like, it's, I don't know. Facebook's weird now. It's changed so much. It's hard to even recognize the website we saw in this movie. But no, I totally agree. And I guess this would be a good time to, like, talk about the Winklevoss twins part of it, because if I had any complaint about the movie, it felt like they're a key part of the story of Facebook, and so the movie had to address them in some way, but it's not part of the themes of the movie, really. Like, I think Eduardo and Zuckerberg's friendship and the dissolution of that friendship is the movie, right? That is the core of the movie. The Winklevoss twins are just kind of there. And there's quite a few scenes with them that I think are very well written scenes that I loved, but I don't know if the movie, like, would have lost anything by removing them.
Sure. Yeah. I think, I don't know. I definitely enjoy, like, they bring a lot of the humor to the movie, honestly.
Sure.
They bring this element of, the cutthroat side of the business warfare, whereas, like, with Eduardo, you just feel like a dog is being kicked every time he's on the screen. Which again, great performance there.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the Winklevi are this, like, the antagonists, right?
Sure.
The movie,
sure.
I know what you mean when you say it feels like they could be left out, but functionally, I think they are the antagonists. It's weird how I think maybe one of the problems is, like, how they're just never really in the same scene. Like not never, but they have so few scenes together that it's difficult to really feel that it matters. Yeah,
and I think that's what I mean, is that, like, this is almost a case where real life kind of got in the way of the story, where you cannot do this story without talking about the Winklevoss twins. Like, you just can't. But I feel like they just weren't really a part of the story that Sorkin and Fincher really were wanting to tell. But I totally agree with you. Those scenes are great. Like, the scenes where they're meeting the president of Harvard and he's just, like, berate with, like, he's just like, what? Why are you here? What are you doing? Like, if you want to sue him, but don't come to me and say he broke the Harvard code of conduct by stealing your website idea. It's a great scene, and I love them walking out. Like, I love the secretary saying this building is 100 years older than the country you're in right now, so be careful. And he's just like, I'm sitting. Like, I don't know.
We're sitting in chairs.
Yeah.
That's a great Sorkin line, right?
The two twins are like, I don't know nothing about the Winklevosses, but the way in which Armie Hammer plays both of these twins differently, I think, is brilliant. Like, one of them is, like, the angry, hot-headed one, and one of them is the much more reserved one. Like, I love the moment where he's on the phone with the lawyer and is like, yeah, you're right. He's not a bad guy. He probably, like, the other one's like, what?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm 6'2", I weigh 250 pounds, and there are two of me.
Yeah. Again, that's, like, so many lines that pair of characters say are just crack me up.
Yeah, and I mean, the moment we were talking about this before we started recording, but the race we see on the I forget what race it was. It's a big one, right? Fuck, I don't remember what race it was.
Something important, but they're in Europe.
Yeah. Where they get second place, and it's just like the perfect symbolism of everything. It's just like no matter what, you are going to get second place.
Coming in second is the first loser, and they feel like shit about this.
Yep.
Which I think I actually do think that was important to kind of situate, because it's very easy to just be like, these guys are already super rich. Why do they need more? Who let go. The president of Harvard is telling you this is stupid. This is stupid to care about. Let go. And it's like that scene emphasizes this isn't really about the money.
Yeah, I mean,
this is about ego.
None of this story is about the money. Eduardo, the character that we feel so bad for, is a billionaire. I looked it up before we started. He has $12 billion. He has $12 billion is how much his net worth is. So like, yeah, none of this is about the money at all. And of course it was like a lot of people got a lot of money, and I don't want to minimize that or anything, but like the drama of the story is not, am I going to get my money? The drama of the story is the friendships that were ruined, the social part of it, the social network that was created between these people that Zuckerberg destroyed in the process of creating his social network, which is like, again, the great irony of the movie is like, it's just brilliant. Like, it's just brilliant. Like, I love this movie. Holy shit. I'm so glad I put this on. I don't know if you remember, but I think I put this on one of my best 10 films of the 2010s. I hadn't seen it in a long time, and I was just kind of going off memory, and I feel completely vindicated because this is absolutely one of the best movies of the past 10 years. It's incredible. Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree. Just so tightly done in every way. Now that I've remembered how much I like it, I'm actually very likely to just like watch it again, because I feel like there's even more kind of subtlety about it to notice. Yeah. The casting choice of Justin Timberlake is so brilliant.
It really is, isn't it? I mean, first of all, the irony of a musician playing the man that took down the music industry is delicious. But I mean, he does such a good job. Like, I don't think Justin Timberlake's that great of an actor. He's been in some movies that I've been like, eesh, but I think the character he's playing here is just so perfect and in his lane that I think he pulls it off here.
Well, I think for me, and I don't know if this is like intended by, the director or whatever, but for me, it's like, that's Justin Timberlake. the coolest guy ever 10 years ago. The coolest. I don't know if people nowadays understand that Justin Timberlake was the coolest guy ever 10 years ago.
Yeah.
He was the coolest guy ever. And having him be this character, you're like, well, I of course get why Mark wants to be like this guy, because he's the coolest guy. But he's also a bit of a weasel. And Eduardo actually has his number perfectly, and it's sort of, it's kind of fun watching how Mark is just so starstruck by this guy that he's actually getting hoodwinked. You're really into that. But like for me, like even a better actor might have not worked as well for me as actually knowing like, hey, that's this one guy who's super, hot shit, and then kind of seeing him portrayed this way as like, he's hot shit, but also he like is on cocaine and giving drugs to underage women, and then he gets the company in trouble. And it's, it all comes together in a way that works super well for me.
I think one of my favorite parts in the movie is at the end there where he's at the fucking fraternity house. I don't know how old he's supposed to be. The ages in this movie are so screwy because like all these people are so fucking young, and it's just like you assume they're older because they're doing like big business deals, and then they're meeting with Sean Parker and being like, we're gonna get carded. I was like, oh, holy shit, you're like 19 years old. Fuck. But anyway, so he's at the fraternity house at the end, and he gets busted, and he calls Zuckerberg up, and Zuckerberg is like finally like seen how pathetic this guy actually is, and he's holding up the giant box of business cards he had printed that said "I'm CEO, bitch" on them. And like when Sean Parker like said that to him, it sounded like the coolest thing ever. But the way Fincher shoots that scene, it just looks so pathetic. It just looks so pathetic for the owner of a multi-million-dollar company to have a business card that says I'm CEO bitch on it. Like, it's just sad. And like,
Right.
you can tell Zuckerberg is looking at that card and thinking like, what is this? This is lame. This isn't good.
What was I thinking? Yeah.
And there are two giant fucking boxes of them. And that's a perfect symbol of like what Parker did to the company, right? Is that like made Zuckerberg think all these things were cool, hot shit. And he invested fully in that idea. Two giant fucking boxes, probably like 2,000 business cards that say "I'm CEO bitch" on them, and it's just it's so good. I love it.
It's also really like that's a really satisfying moment when you, and again a great acting moment where you can just see in his face and in the tone of his voice that he's decided like, nah, I can't afford to deal with your shit. You're done. You're done with this company.
Yeah, that's and that's the friend he thought he had, right? Like he ditched Eduardo chasing Sean Parker as his new best friend, and that's that one gone too. And he has nobody, to the point where he reaches out to this random woman that he's met like twice in this lawyer. That it's such a wonderfully sad ending, right?
Yeah.
Like I think the last line she says to him is like a great kind of full circle on the first line said by Rooney Mara, where Rooney Mara says he's an asshole. She says to him at the end, and I'm blanking on who her name is, which is frustrating me because she's from Parks and Rec and a bunch of other stuff, and I really love her, but I cannot remember her name for the life of me. Wow, IMDb, you're letting me down.
I don't know.
But she basically says to him, "You're not an asshole. You're just trying hard to be one. You're just trying too hard to be one." Rashida Jones. Jesus, it's Rashida Jones. She's wonderful. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's the conclusion of the movie, right? The opening salvo of the movie is that Mark Zuckerberg, you are an asshole. And the ending line of the movie is, well, okay, you're not an asshole. You just really, really think it's cool for everyone to think you're an asshole. Because you think that's what people want out of you. And that's just sad, dude. That's just sad. And that's what the movie ends on.
Yeah. That reminds me of something that I wanted to mention, that like I somehow only noticed this on this viewing, which is that they cut from, correct me if I'm wrong, I did just watch this, so I don't think I am, but they cut from the scene where, they cut from either from the bar scene where Erica is talking to him and then leaves, or shortly after that, into the deposition room, and then he basically says, "That's not true. She's lying. She's making this up." And I thought that was really interesting because that's maybe one of the only times in the movie where it's even hinted that these things that we're seeing in the past aren't true. Right. Or it's also possible that is true, and Mark has like deluded himself and doesn't realize that he came off that way. Sure. Either one of those interpretations is interesting, actually, because like if he doesn't understand that he came off like a huge dick, then that would kind of explain like he's just bad at this, right? And then you kind of feel bad for him. But also if she's lying and he didn't really say those things, then you still kind of feel bad for him in that situation. Sure. It's like a bit at least. I don't know. I never noticed before. I never really connected in my mind like, oh, he says that she's lying. That means that he's implying that this scene didn't actually happen this way. Right. I mean, that is the movie kind of introducing unreliability into the story, right? It has said now that, or it has at least winked at the fact that everything we're seeing outside the deposition rooms is not just a depiction of the events, but a visualization of the deposition, and therefore is speculative and possibly not 100% true. And that's a really interesting wrinkle in the whole thing, because it's really the only time the movie does that. But just by having that little bit in there, it's inviting you to make that exact conclusion, to question that. And I wonder if that's part of the way they got around the whole very loosely based on a true story thing, is that, well, these are just, this is maybe not necessarily the way everything happened. This is just the way certain people said things happened. That's still not quite true, but
They definitely took some liberties with a lot of things, but I like that both Fincher and Sorkin allow that possibility to exist, that people could just be lying, and this is not the way. These are not the conversations that actually had. This is not the way things went down.
Yeah, I mean, again, I actually enjoy the idea that maybe this is exactly what happened, and he's just incapable of seeing himself in such a negative light to the point where he just doesn't remember it happening that way.
Sure.
Which is very human.
Yeah, I mean, there are moments in Eduardo's deposition where it'll cut to Mark sitting at the table, and they'll have this wonderful Jesse Eisenberg look of like, not shock, because as you said, he hides everything, but like distress, like this very minute bit of distress, almost as if like recognizing that he said those things for the first time. Like, I think I love it's Sorkin poetry when they're doing the repetition of, it's like, how much were Mark Zuckerberg shares diluted, how much were Sean Parker shares diluted, blah blah blah, how much were your shares what were your shares diluted to? 0.09%, which actually isn't true. I looked it up. It's somewhere under 10% is what happened. He went from 35 something to under 10%. But 0.09 sounds way better. So I get why the liberties were taken there. But there is, when he says that, a cut to Zuckerberg, and it's like, oh, I've never seen it from that angle. Maybe I feel like he gets so wrapped up in other things that he's never actually listening to people. Like that's the biggest thing in the movie, is he's rarely actually listening to what people are saying to him. He's moving on to the next thing. And actually that leads me to one more thing that I wanted to mention, is the way Fincher depicts that with beer. It's just the most wonderful little tidbit in the movie, Matt.
Okay.
Just this idea how disconnected he is from all the people around him. There are multiple scenes in this movie in which Zuckerberg is either getting a beer for someone or someone is getting a beer for him, and he just doesn't notice at all. So there's one early in the movie where he and Eduardo, I think he's late this is when he had the idea for, I don't remember what it is. It's when he gets the cease and desist letter. It's when Eduardo finds out about the cease and desist letter. So they both walk into the apartment. Eduardo goes to the mini fridge, pulls out 2 beers, one for himself, one for Zuckerberg. And then Zuck goes to the fridge himself and pulls out one of his own beers. And Eduardo goes to hand him the beer, sees he has one, and is just like, and then is just holding 2 beers for the rest of the scene. And it's just like, how that's a great way to visualize how disconnected they are as people. He's just not aware of his surroundings. He's not thinking about any of this stuff. And then there's another scene later in the movie when they're out in California and they're at the house, and Zuckerberg is getting himself a beer. And then he gets a beer for Sean Parker, and he chucks it at him, and Parker catches it barely. I think Justin Timberlake does a really good job of seeing the thing was thrown way too hard, and he barely catches it. And then he does the same for Parker's girlfriend and just chucks it right into the wall because she's not paying attention.
Right.
And again, this is the disconnect between him and all the people around him, that he's just not paying attention to these people, and and is almost indifferent to whether they're ready for anything or not, or what they want or what they need, or if they're prepared for it, and just is chucking beers hard against walls. It's such a great way to visualize this, and I did not notice it until this watch. It's great.
Yeah, that is great. I don't think I've noticed that either. Now that you mention it, it reminds me a little bit, there's the point even before Eduardo shows up at the beginning of the movie when he he throws a pen to his roommate or to some guy who's in his room, and the guy it falls into the guy's drink.
Yeah.
And it's like a half a second, cut, but that's another example of drink related hijinks though.
Sure.
But yeah, no, I love that. It's showing how he's kind of trying, but he just can't. It's not working for him, and so he's decided he's going to create the world's largest social network to try to connect to people.
See, he's got to get 500 million friends.
Yeah, it's funny. I think before this viewing, I was like, the social network has got to be the dumbest movie title for a really good movie, like in terms of ratio, like in terms of like bad title for good movie quality, because it's so boring. It's such a boring name. And then after this viewing, and especially kind of after having this conversation with you, I'm like, no, it's because it's not about Facebook. It's about the social network, and it's about how this character can't plug into it. He actually understands it really well intellectually, but he can't, like, he's got butterfingers. He can't do it. He can't make it work for himself.
Yeah.
So he just uses his intellect to like try to force it, and that doesn't really work either, which is the tragedy of the whole thing.
Yeah. And I guess we can't finish this conversation without talking about what has happened to Facebook in the last 10 years, because sure. I think it's fascinating to me that this movie was made in 2010, and Facebook has changed so much since this movie. Like in the past 10 years, like this was at the very beginning of the decade, and Facebook has been core to almost every single narrative of the past decade. That's kind of one of the reasons I included it in my top 10 films of the decade, is because of this. And it's morphed from this social networking site to so much more. I mean, like, even in the news this week, we had the CEO of Twitter deciding to put like a content warning on Donald Trump's tweets, which caused like an executive order to be passed today trying to limit Twitter's ability to do that. And we have Mark Zuckerberg over here saying, I don't think he should do that. Like Mark Zuckerberg has gone from, thanks, I think, a lot to the depiction of this film as like the loser that you kind of feel bad for, even if he's a billionaire, to a full out villain. Like he's a villain now. And it's crazy to me that, like, I almost feel like this movie came out too early. There was too much of the Facebook story left that I would love. Like, they need to do a follow up to this movie. I need a Social Network too, to talk about the last 10 years and what's happened to Facebook and what's happened to Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but the problem is that the character in this movie and the person who Mark Zuckerberg has revealed himself to be are far too divergent.
Fair.
And like the snake that Zuckerberg has shown himself to be is not really this character.
Yeah.
He is actually much more like calculating and intentional and manipulative than would be a good sympathetic character in a film. Because that's the thing about this Mark Zuckerberg in this movie, is that fundamentally you feel sorry for him because you feel like he can't help himself. That's how he's played. That's how the movie is framing everything about this. He's emotionally constipated. He's inept. He's able to have one friend, and that friend kind of has to just shrug off a lot of casual cruelty. Like one of the things where, you know, where he's saying stuff to Eduardo, like, yeah, you're right, it probably was a diversity thing with the Final Club.
Yeah.
It's like that's great, because like I don't even think he was trying to be cruel. Like I think this is just how bad he is at understanding other people. Like I don't even think he knew that would hurt Eduardo's feelings necessarily.
I don't think he was thinking of Eduardo. I think he was covering for his own insecurity.
Yes.
He was trying to build a narrative in which he understands why him and not me.
Yes.
And that had nothing to do with Eduardo at all. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah, and no, so I totally agree with you that is not who Mark Zuckerberg is, clearly. I mean, the choices he's made for his company over the past 10 years make that 100% true. And I wonder if this movie, I don't want to attach anything to a movie without knowing it for sure, but I do wonder if this movie led to a false understanding of who Zuckerberg was in the cultural consciousness, that not led to him being allowed to do what he did, because certainly I don't think like a movie is powerful enough to create a lane that gave, like, I think it's the billions of dollars and the popularity of the social networking site, not this movie, that allowed Zuckerberg to get away with what he's gotten away with. But I think people gave him the benefit of the doubt for a long time, and because they saw so much of Jesse Eisenberg in him when they looked at him.
Yeah,
I don't know. You think? I don't know.
Well, it depends. I don't know. I think that if I actually sat down and did some Googling, I could probably say, like, I think maybe this movie resulted in a good like year or two of like accidental positive press for Facebook in the sense of turning him like turning the portrayal from like tyrant amoral bastard into just like, oh, he's just like a poor hapless guy, he doesn't know what's going on. But then at a certain point I think that wore off, and I don't know at what point that was, like socially, because
2016.
I mean how can you even answer that question like exactly, but definitely in 2016 it became extremely evident. It became kind of like undisputable, I guess.
It's kind of it's crazy. Like it is just so crazy to think like back to 2010, and this was just a very popular company that hadn't really pivoted to the kind of terrible data mining. Like when was the whole Facebook video debacle? I think it was after 2010. I'm pretty sure. I think that still is one of the scummiest things Facebook has ever done, and that includes the election stuff that they allowed to happen. But for those that don't know, Facebook was basically overstating the amount of traffic their Facebook video was getting, and it led to a bunch of companies pivoting to video only content because they saw it as a way of staying afloat, and it crushed
people off.
It crushed .coms. Like it crushed them because they started doing it, and of course the numbers were inflated, like maliciously inflated by a huge amount.
Nobody watches video on their Facebook.
No. And so I mean that was evil. That was evil. And they got like a few $1 million fine or whatever. It's like they earned that in a day, whatever, moved on with their lives. But yeah, I mean it's crazy. It's crazy, man. Facebook, it sucks. The cool thing is that Facebook isn't cool anymore. That's the cool thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. It has been an interesting 10 years because now there's so many different social networking sites, and like other things that have arisen to kind of take advantage of this always online, always connected world. Even in I don't really remember what kinds of smartphones existed in 2010. But like one thing that people might forget also is like when the Facebook.com came out, like we didn't have smartphones. Like there wasn't this thing where you were checking your smartphone, 170 times a day for notifications. So that's been a new thing that has come in after, right? It was a very different world back then.
Yeah, no, I mean, totally. It's completely different. I mean, do you remember when you first signed up for Facebook?
I do. Yeah, I do. I remember it was early enough that it was like right when it came to our campus for the first time.
Yeah. I loved when they were talking about getting Baylor and UT on Facebook by going to all the colleges around them first. And I was like, hey, that was us. Yeah. I had a friend that I went to high school with. She was at Trinity, and she's the one that told me about it. And she actually set up my account for me because I literally I did not understand what it was. I was like, what? It's like I think she described it as like a yearbook for college, but online. And I was like, what does that mean?
Who cares about that? Yeah. One thing that people might not know is like you had your wall. Now you don't even really have a wall. Now you just have like the events, which is a much more vague concept. But like you had the wall, and which was only visible if people went to your page, and anyone could edit your wall. And so at one point, one of my friends, I guess he thought it would be funny. I don't know, but he deleted everything that was on my wall up to that point, like permanently. And I was like, "What the fuck, asshole!"
I did not realize that you could ever do that. Holy shit!
Yeah. That's how like slipshod it was back then. Basically, like was really not. It was not what it is now.
Yeah, I mean, we joined when it was still the Facebook, right?
Yeah, we did.
It must have been 2004 when all this. Yeah, it had to have been 2004 because I'm pretty sure I was a freshman.
I was either a freshman or a sophomore based on where I was living. Yeah.
Wow. God, we're old.
I'm looking it up right now just to be sure.
That's the weirdest part about this whole thing is that like for this movie in particular, we were in the sweet spot. Like we were in college when this came out, so we were the first group. We were in the first wave of users, really. Not the first. We did not go to Harvard, so we were not in like the first wave, but like we were in the 100 colleges by the end of the year wave of this. And so we've kind of been with this site from the beginning. And so we lived a lot of the background stuff that was happening in a lot of this. It's crazy. I wonder what this movie's going to be like in like 40 years, you know, like when, I mean, I don't think Facebook is going to go away, but I also think its relevance is going down because like none of the Generation Z really do Facebook. They're all about TikTok. Instagram is more popular, but like TikTok is the social thing that everyone's doing. So I just wonder, like a couple generations from now, are people going to look at this thing like what I don't understand. Like, Are they going to get it? Are they going to understand why this whole thing was significant? Like, does the movie do a good enough job of explaining why Facebook was so significant? Or is it just kind of operating on our assumed understanding of what social media was in 2010?
Yeah, that's a good question, because one really critical thing about the way Facebook was for the first many years was that it was like, it was basically you and your college friends, and you could sort of be a ridiculous college person on there. And like if anything, it enabled and facilitated kind of the excessive party culture of colleges, because it was like everything was like the parties, the invites, the events. It became very like event centric for a while. And like it still kind of is, but the thing is now, anything you post on there is going to be seen by 100 relatives, and coworkers probably. And so now, maybe that's just because we're old. Maybe college students, maybe it still functions. I don't think it does though, because like you said, college students don't really use it, probably because their parents are literally on it and have been for years. So like there is kind of no like it's interesting because like at first Facebook really was just like the college social network for a long time. And then when they finally opened it up, I actually remember that for a long time it was like you have to have a .edu email address to use this. And then when they opened it up, I actually remember thinking like, well, that's really gonna like change this thing that they've built. It's not going to be the same thing anymore. And I was right.
Yep. I remember when my parents got on it, or at least my mom. My dad was a late adapter, but my mom got on it, and I was like, oh, my mom's on here now. I have to watch what I say, I guess. It's totally completely. And I don't know, like, I don't know if the movie does a good enough job of establishing that, because it definitely was made in a time in which that is just common knowledge. Everyone knows that. Everyone understands that. And so, like 50, 100 years from now, what does this movie do to people? I don't know. It's going to be really interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think one fun thing that the movie did to me watching it is like, it reminded me, it was like, oh, this is what it felt like to be in college. Like,
sure.
Like you really felt like all of this stuff mattered. And like you were still young enough that it was kind of exciting to be drinking a beer, you know, like, you know, like, and like it really kind of transported me back to that feeling of like, oh yeah, like I remember being young and everything being like new and exciting. And I think that the movie does capture that regardless of whether you know what Facebook is.
And like getting like people adding you, like getting added friends, and like people writing on your wall, and like that. Yeah, that was such an exciting experience at the time, right? There was nothing. It was fun. It was exciting. And to your point, this was the time when to Facebook someone, you had to go to your computer and open up your laptop and you didn't just have it on your phone constantly. So it was definitely a totally different experience. Yeah. Wow.
Yep.
We're old.
Yeah.
I think the last thing I want to conclude on with this thing is I want to kind of turn back to our director, David Fincher, and kind of maybe talk about what do we think attracted him about this project, and how we can maybe relate this movie back to the 7 films that came before it. I do see, in my opinion, a common thread of like, I mean, if you look between Zodiac and this, there's this common thread of obsessiveness to the point of damaging your life. You look at like this, just an examination of what drives people and what makes people do certain things, and why. I think he really likes to take like broken people and really shine a spotlight on them and say, here's a broken person. Why is he broken? Let's figure it out. And I also think like the lighting of this movie is very Fincher-esque. Like, it's very dull, and like there's a lot of yellows in this movie. I don't know if you noticed that. There's like a lot of yellows. Everything's like kind of tinted yellow, and it just makes, I don't know, it just makes like it drowns out all the other color. There's just not a lot of color in this movie. Sure. And that's a very Sorkin thing too. Or not Sorkin, like, that's a very Fincher thing.
Like brown, like, you know, there's a lot of browns in it, but what's interesting is it's more like the lustrous browns of fine mahogany in these ancient establishments, rather than like the brown of feces dripping through the wall, which is what it has been in previous movies.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like, it's definitely not like, this is definitely not like the disgusting world of previous Fincher movies, but I still think he sees some disgust in it, like in some of these. Like, I do think the scenes of the Final Club party are shot with disgust, like of the way these men are treating these women, and the, like, I think there's a resentment of a lot of this sure. Harvardness going on, and not just because our character feels that. Well, that's the irony of our character, right? He resents it, but he wants it.
Yes. Yes.
And I think the lighting and the way Harvard is shot and depicted really, really taps into that.
Right. Like, you know, he wants to be the Winklevoss twins and simultaneously despises them. And, you know, I like the only guy who has any speaking lines in the party at the beginning is like, he's wearing like a suit, but then like a backwards baseball cap. And it's just coded for like, just maximum douchebag scale, right?
Yep.
And everything about like the way the boys are dressed in that scene is like, this is just, you're trying to max out my douchebag meter here. I agree.
Yep. It's great. So yeah, I think this is like, I definitely look at this movie and I see David Fincher. Like, I see why he was brought to it. Like, these are not the gross serial killers of some of his earlier movies, but there's some disgust here. There's some broken people. That's all here, I think. So
yeah,
I love how he continues to explore these type of people.
Yeah, I think we've also mentioned like people who are alienated from the world. I mean, this character actually has quite a lot in common with the Fight Club character, like in terms of feeling disconnected and having one friend,
totally,
who of course is not real, and then creating a cult to try to make more friends, but it doesn't really work for him.
Instead, they just blow up some banks.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right, well, that is it for The Social Network. That was a really fun conversation. When we return to our Deconstructing Fincher series, we will be talking about the 9th and penultimate movie of our series. I can't believe we're almost done with it already, although we're doing only once a month, so almost done with it means we're 2 months away. But next month, we are going to be talking about The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which, as we said last time, is a movie I have actually not seen. So this is the only Fincher movie I will have not seen before the podcast. So I'm pretty excited, Matt. You get to lord it over me that you know a movie that I don't.
This has literally never happened before.
So we'll be back in a month's time to talk about The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. And let's move on to the next thing.
Doof. Scott, tell me why I should watch The Vast of Night.
So, okay. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because I want to tell you as little about this movie as possible. But The Vast of Night is on Amazon Prime right now. It is I'm trying to think of the way to describe this. It is a 50s B movie / radio drama type thing that's also X-Files-y and Twilight Zone-y, if that makes sense. So the conceit is it's set in like a small town in the 1950s. The main character is like a radio DJ, and then some weird extraterrestrial stuff starts happening, and it's kind of like beautifully shot in this kind of like sepia-toned, like period kind of color that's just so reminiscent of B movies, but like it's got these super interesting characters. The main character is a DJ, and the other main character is a girl that works at a phone switching station. And so a lot of it is just conversations over the radio or over phone with people that are experiencing some UFO stuff. It's basically an episode of The Twilight Zone for an hour and a half. And I've never quite seen something like it. I saw this at Fantastic Fest. I think it was, I don't even know if it was this year or last year. Everything's running together, but it's if you like Sorkin dialogue, it is kind of, it's not the same, but it is fast moving, kind of rhythmic dialogue with people bouncing off each other and talking very fast. And it's very dialogue driven because a lot of it is over the phone or over the radio. But it's such a cool, fun little movie, Matt, and I want as many people to see it as possible, because I think even if you don't love it like I did, I think there's going to be some fun stuff you can take away from it.
It really does sound right up my alley. Is this available for Amazon, etc.?
Yeah, it's on Prime, so if you have a
cool.
Prime subscription, it should be free. It does have like an early Spielberg film to it too, like sort of Invasion of the Body. No, well, that's not quite right. I don't know. It's really hard to place because I haven't seen. I think a movie length episode of a Twilight Zone, like old school Twilight Zone, is like the best way to describe it. But even that, I don't think is doing it enough justice. It's really cool. It's really cool.
Okay, yeah, that sounds fun. I don't think you need to sell me much harder. What you just described is like extremely intriguing. Like it's intriguing to me in the same way that like the Magnus Archives is intriguing, I guess. Yeah.
I think, you and I have talked a lot about plays that have been adapted into movies, and this is not a play that was adapted into a movie, but it feels very play-y in that it's driven by dialogue. Because it's very low budget, so like you don't expect to see like a lot of crazy special effects. Most of it is like people talking about things they're experiencing rather than actually experiencing them. I believe it's shot in a lot of oneers as well, so there's a lot of single takes where the camera is moving around very very deliberately and slowly. It's so enjoyable.
That's super cool.
I don't know why I keep talking about it, because I love it. And maybe you'll take a look at it this week and we can circle back around and talk about it in some more depth next week. But I really, really want everyone to check this thing out.
Cool.
Because so one of the things I haven't said about it is it opens kind of like in a Twilight Zone-y way, that this is part of an ongoing fictional show called Paradox Theater. So it kind of opens, a Twilight Zone opens, right? Where it's like, I'm about to tell you a weird story. So it's got this Paradox Theater idea, and I want it to do well because I hope that maybe they get to make more films of this ilk in this kind of Paradox Theater framing device. I think it would be really cool.
Oh man, that's exciting to me. Sort of like the Cloverfield idea, except good.
Burn. Hey, 10 Cloverfield Lane is pretty good.
Yeah, no, that was far too harsh. Their reach exceeded their grasp. Let me say it that way.
It definitely did. Remember the surprise Super Bowl Cloverfield?
Yes.
I forget what it was even called, but it was bad. It was so bad.
The Cloverfield, the Cloverfield something.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's all I had this week. Just saw that was coming out. I haven't seen it since Fantastic Fest, and I've like, it was one of those movies that I was worried I was going to see at the film festival, and I was going to want to talk about to people, and no one was ever going to get to see. So when I saw earlier this week that it was going to be on Amazon this weekend, I was like, hell yes. Then I got really excited. So I was like, I have to talk about it on the show. So maybe we'll circle around next week and talk to you about how you thought about it. I'm going to watch it again this weekend because I've been wanting to watch it since I saw it. So maybe we'll do that. But that's all I had.
Let's see. Yeah, we'll try.
All right. That's all we had for you guys this week. If you have any opinions on I guess just the social network, or let us know if you watched The Vast of Night this weekend and liked it, didn't like it. Let us know. You can reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or over on our Twitter account at doofmedia.
Yeah, and if you're not already subscribed to this podcast, we encourage you to do so and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, Facebook, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
Yeah, you can follow us on Facebook, I guess, if you really want to.
There is a Doof Media Facebook page. It's not something we put a huge amount of effort into, but if you want to follow us there, be part of our social network.
Literally can't stop you. So do it. But of course, you can find all the shows we do over at our website, doofmedia.com. That's where you will find our newest show on the network, Decomposing Worm. Episode 2 of that has premiered today as you're listening to this. It is the I think 8-part series where they're going through Worm and kind of talking about it from some other lenses. I really enjoyed part 1 of their discussion on the first 8 arcs, and part 2 should be out now. Also, Matt, it's book club time. If you are listening to this on the day it came out, Friday, the 29th of May, our book club is tonight, 9:30 p.m. Central Time, over on our YouTube page. You can just search for Doof Media in YouTube to find it. We are going to be talking about The Republic of Thieves, the 3rd book in Scott Lynch's Gentleman's Bastards series. The book club is something we do every night where our patrons vote on a book and we go online and talk about it for a couple of hours. Matt and I pull some slides of specific things we want to talk about, but basically it's just kind of a chat about the book. It's a lot of fun. I really like it. So if you've never participated in it and want to, start. It's going to be a lot of fun. Next month is, what was it? Diamond Age. We're doing Stevenson next month, which is like Matt's crack. So
it is. It
might be a really good one to join on for the first time.
Yeah. And that's a book I strongly recommend. Like, I've read it a million times. It's a great book.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. And if you like what we do here and want to support us, consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. Head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia and pledge at the $5 level, which gets you access to our monthly Doof and Chill sessions, which is just like 2 hours of some of the Doof Media network hosts just hanging out together and doing weird shit. I think we played Left 4 Dead 2, the 4 of us did last month, which was just a whole bunch of fun. But we do something different every month. I think next month we're going to be talking with Matthias and Clarence, the 2 new hosts of Decomposing Worm, getting to know them a little better and just chatting. So it's just a little bit bonus thing we do for those that support us, and you can get that at the $5 level. And of course, all levels get access to our Discord, allow you to vote in the monthly book clubs, all that cool stuff. So patreon.com/doofmedia.
Yeah. And of course, it also helps us a lot if you give us a rating and or review over on Apple Podcasts, on your podcast app. Every review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
That is right. Give us a like Facebook, a good old fashioned Facebook like. It would be very nice.
Right on our wall.
I wonder if people don't even remember the wall.
I think they don't.
Probably.
That's so weird to me.
Yeah. All right, folks, that is it for this week. We will be back next week for another one of our patron-produced episodes. Matt, next week we are going to be watching the movie In the Mouth of Madness. I don't think this is one you've ever seen, right?
No.
This is a crazy film, Matt.
I am looking. This is Sam Neill, right?
Yes, Sam Neill.
I'm so happy.
It's going to be a lot of fun. John Carpenter. I love John Carpenter. I haven't seen this movie in a long, long time, so I look forward to this conversation. But so join us. You can rent In the Mouth of Madness on just about any streaming platform that is available, and then you can come back next week and talk about it with us. Well, awesome. You can't. You can listen to us talk about it, and then you can talk. We just won't be able to hear it.
Yeah.
You can email. You can just Facebook me. Just Facebook me.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.